So talk about Chat GPT, for example, and how that has changed everybody's lives as far as just every day in communications, for example,
Mhm.
and how people can utilize that. I mean, just that alone.
Sure. So that that type of AI is called generative AI. And so generative AI is a form of artificial intelligence where you give an input and it produces some kind of output. It could be text based, it could be video based. We just saw OpenAI's latest product, it's text to video, and it is startling in terms of, and people can go on my personal LinkedIn. I wrote a whole editorial on it, but it's startling how you can say something like, um, create a video of puppies playing in the snow and it looks like real golden retriever puppies playing in the snow, or create a movie trailer with a spaceman in a knit space helmet is another one, and it looks like a movie trailer. With something like Chat GPT, or we see Google Gemini, which I'll talk about in a minute, I think that has built-in narcissism, and I'll say that openly, even though I'm a Google shareholder, full disclosure, and if anyone's listening from Google. And then we see Microsoft Copilot. So I can put these inputs in and it's going to create an output. So I have used it personally. I build my own GPTs. I just did a big interview for an AI show with a bunch of girlfriends who've all won awards in AI. And I build my own GPTs, Rebecca, because I want them to sound like me. And I have different ones for different things. And you don't have to be a coder. If you have the GPT-4, which I do, the paid version, there's a place where you can go and start to build your own GPTs. And so when we see what people are using them for, we're seeing search. The number one social media search is actually TikTok now. People are using that for search, but we're seeing GPTs being used for search. We see them for optimization. Like I was negotiating a legal contract, and I have more attorneys than I have handbags, but I really wanted ADR language in there, and I didn't really like how they had worded it. So I put it in my GPT, and I said, I want ADR language, put in this, and this is what I want. And it prompted it, and I sent it back to their attorney, and he was like, perfect, we'll go with that. And that came out of OpenAI. So so we're using it for a lot of different things. I think the on the other side, we're also seeing a lot of people even using it as a companion, and not just recommendations for restaurant. How do I heal my marriage? How do I improve my social media presence? And it will spit out all kinds of recommendations. The thing we have to understand is that ChatGPT is a Microsoft product, and my new startup, the Pause Technologies, is also a Microsoft startup. So I'm in that ecosystem. We're building in that ecosystem. So it's using search from Bing. Gemini, Google's product, is using search from Google. And then you've got Microsoft Copilot, which a lot of my friends who are technologists, data science, and so forth are very excited about that one. It is also a Microsoft product. And then we have Grok, which is the one that Elon's team built that is over on X. And so there's a lot of different generative AI platforms out there. How people are using them and how people like me are using them is we're using different ones for different things.
Okay, so when you say build your own to make it sound like you, can you give more direction on that?
Well, because I love you in this like girlfriend chat, how long have I been telling you as your sister, let me build one that sounds like Rebecca? It's easy to do. And
Okay,
I could do it in literally 15 minutes. So how you do it is these models are very data hungry. So I'll give you an example. So I decided, for some reason, having an esoteric like moment, I graduated from MIT Sloan. I'm going to go back to MIT Sloan and do this chief digital officer program. And I don't mind saying to your audience, because like my show is raw and real entrepreneurship. You've been on the show, I'll be raw and real, that I was like do I need to prove myself as I'm transitioning to go into this next chapter? Am I really a technologist? Because I was always known as the non-technical founder. So I I decided to go back to school. So what I did, here's an example of a GPT I built. I went into Chat GPT and I took all of the contents of the program that I am studying at MIT. I put them into a GPT. I called it Tim's World. Tim is the mascot of MIT. It's a beaver. And so now it knew how the content the professors wanted us to learn. And so when I was writing my papers and I was going in the group and having to do like the dialogue, MIT lets us use GPT. So I'm just not telling you anything my professors didn't know. It Instead of me taking 3 hours to write a paper, I would do it in literally 2 minutes. I'd check the references, click through, make sure they were relevant. I asked it to cite things in APA 7 format. It did. And it was like that. If I was building one for Rebecca, what I would do is I would take inputs of things that Rebecca had written and I would say, we are training the model. I would tell it, we are training this model, and this is the language, this is the tone. I would even give it references to interviews you've done. It doesn't really currently read video, but it will read images. But it is great at reading text. I'd give it any text, video, or interviews you've done, and I would train it to sound just like Rebecca. Then you can actually export that GPT, depending on, all sorts of different things. You have people who do it for you. You can export it and use it. So you could go to Rebecca's website and interact with it as though it's Rebecca. You can build a chat bot that sounds just like you and have it embedded in your website.
Okay, interesting. Interesting. And all of that is in Chat GPT.
In GPT-4. And then there's a developer section there. You don't need to know how to code, but if you wanted to build, say, a chat bot, then there's some coding that's required. But these tools have made things so fast. It's incredible. So even for my new company, we are going to be building our own LLM, our own large language model. We're going to build right now in women's menopause. It is disgusting, the disparities in health. Just to give an example, Rebecca, heart disease kills more women than all the top 5 cancers combined in the United States. 70% of the data on heart disease comes from middle-aged white men. Neither you nor I are a middle-aged white man, yet the majority of that data set is from this. So we're gathering our data as we're launching our platform, which will come first in the App Store, and then it'll come in the Google Play Store, and it'll be an amazing platform for women to be able to get the best customized recommendations for menopause. And then we'll take that, we'll build our own large language model. But currently, basically anyone can build a GPT. Anyone can do it.
So if somebody is now saying, hey, I want to be able to negotiate powerfully, I want to have the edge and be able to, you know, mm, uh, write this really powerful email, or I want to be able to create leverage against this person, what would they be able to do using ChatGPT?
Oh, girl, we're going to get a lot of comments on this one. This is what I would do. I would take whatever correspondence the attorney had sent over. I would feed it into GPT. Don't use 3.5, use 4. I think they're working on GPT-5. I would feed it in and I'd say, help me negotiate based on this. And so it would use that data as an input. Give me questions that this attorney is likely to ask based on this correspondence. Give me, help me to have the best responses for this. You can train it to go back and forth with you. I've even put things into it. The other day, there was a GPT outage last week, but prior to that, even OpenAI, and I'm going to call them out because they have not one woman on their board. They have a female like a board, monitor, but they don't have a woman on their board. We are literally the generation giving birth to AI, but there is no current. Every company, Target is an AI company, Walmart is an AI company, any company using AI is an AI company. And women are naturally the ones that give birth. And there are a lot of smart women out there. Every company should have, firstly, someone who specializes in AI on their board. Secondly, every AI company needs to have women on their board, not just observers, but actually on their freaking board. I said the same thing to Julie Sooth, Secretary of Labor, when I was with her at the CES this year in Las Vegas. And this is the disgusting to me that there's no legislation. That's my little soapbox. So that's as an aside, Rebecca. I know we were talking about that. But the reason I bring this up is GPT, even OpenAI will admit, oh, we know that GPT isn't responding the way it should, or blah, 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 blah. I've actually said to it, your response isn't good enough. Do critique your own work. It will critique its own work.
Yeah. So let's say you want to create a response. Okay. So you put it in Chat GPT, you can do it that way, right? So you want to say, I want to create an email response, put it in Chat GPT. Right.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you have to prompt it to be able to respond in a certain way, because it's going to do some things that are fairly stock, like, things. So you would say something like, respond to this at a master's degree, MBA from Wharton level speech. The more specific you are with your queries, the better. And the more, so when I'm writing papers, I'm writing at a MIT Sloan graduate level, because that's how I would write. And so that's what I tell it to do. But if you just put in like, oh, what should I say? It's not going to help you. You would say something like, what would a $750 an hour attorney respond to in this case? How would they respond? Respond like that. Respond from the point of view of someone who wants to win this case, and it will disclaim it and say, just so you know, I can't make any promises. No, but it's the thing it's going to help you do is organize your thoughts. It's going to help you come up with ideas. And AI is the first technology that is really there to enhance how humans think and produce output. All the other technologies have been like, let's move us from place to place. Like when cars started, when airplanes started, kitchen gadgets, let's just make things more efficient. This is the first technology that's designed to make our brains more super efficient, like pure technology. And that's what it should be used for. But at the end of the day, you've got to check your work. You need a sanity check. I'm not suggesting you replace your attorney with GPT by any stretch of the imagination, but it is incredibly helpful. And most of my friends who are professionals are using GPT.
Yeah, for sure. What other types of AI could somebody engage or use for getting the edge in negotiation or leverage or dealing with narcissists or dealing with somebody that's high conflict?
That is an excellent question. I'm gonna shift to the dangers of AI with the people are negotiating with.
Okay.
So I want to shift, because I think your question is brilliant. Of course, we want to know what we're up against. So everyone listening, watching, you're negotiating with a narcissist. And believe me, I have negotiated with narcissists in business, in life, and it sucks. Narcissists will always use tools that are out of integrity because they don't have integrity. So I want to talk about what narcissists are using that are so damaging right now. So let's start with deepfakes. So there was the Taylor Swift deepfake. And the good thing
And
is,
I just want to make sure that people understand what she's saying. It's DEEPFAKE. So it's like deep fake. Yeah. Is that, just not everybody understands what you're talking about. Right?
Sure. Yeah, no worries. So what that was, it was widely in the media that it looked like Taylor Swift had, essentially was in porn. Now, I want everyone to know two things. Taylor Swift has millions of fans, and they knew it wasn't her. And so that way, it didn't last. It wasn't a problem for her because she had built a stellar reputation. To make a deep fake, it only costs, Rebecca, it can cost as little as 30, $40. You can have it done overseas, and you
Wow.
only need about 10 images of that person to make it happen.
Wow.
That's number one. We are seeing where young girls are getting bullied with deep fakes. Before, you would have to like take an image of the person, Photoshop it. Not anymore. With generative AI, you can have these deep fakes created. So what I am concerned about is our young women. I'm concerned about in terms of negotiating, in terms of divorce, in terms of relationships, in terms of business conflict. We're going to start seeing, and we're already seeing what has happened with this election. We're going to see it at the C-suite level. We know that you and I were talking about on the show, prior to the show, that when a team of people want to destroy a woman in a leadership position, they'll just talk smack about her. They'll talk about her boobs. They'll do all sorts of stupid stuff. They'll say, oh, she's in menopause. Like, oh my gosh. Now they can do even worse. They can make up things she's written. They can make up images about her. They can make up videos with her. So the OpenAI Sora that I was talking about making the videos, how do you know it's not going to be able to produce a video of a CEO who goes to church, who volunteers, who is a mom, pole dancing? We don't know because we don't know. We won't know until we use it and get our hands on it. We've seen the images that Google Gemini has created that are false. We have seen, I put into OpenAI DALL-E, I asked it to create an image. It was such it was a very provocative image, and that's not at all what I had asked it to create. So it is so easy for these deep fakes, and it's also easy for deep fakes for voice. It's easy for deep fakes for video. So we're going to see we have seen nothing yet in terms of how dirty divorce is going to be, how dirty it's going to be in the corporate landscape. This election is already shaping up to be dirty, dirty, dirty. And it's, like I was talking to a friend of mine who's a congresswoman, and I'm like, I don't know how you do it. The vitriol, I don't know how you do it. This election, and this is not about one party or another, or candidate or another. This is often foreign overseas collusion creating this, and it's not necessarily about the candidate asking them to do it. So it's about to get dirty on a whole other level, and we have to know this, because I'll share my tips in terms of how you can protect yourself, but you have to know that it's about to get dirtier than you've ever imagined. And we're even going to see new forms of law that come up just to deal with these deep fakes in terms of things like divorce. So,
well, how do people know if it's real or not? How can you verify?
you can't. That's the whole thing. So Meta came out with a statement, and they said, oh, we're allowing our users to say if it's AI generated or not. Here's why. They actually don't know. Back in 2008, when Facebook first started, we would, you would get the thing, is that Susan with you? And you go, yes. And then I had a hat on, and you had a hat on. Is that Susan with you? You go, yes. That's called data annotation. All of us with Facebook accounts were complicit in training the largest facial recognition image data set in the entire freaking world. We did that. So I hope everyone, made a lot of money in Facebook, because you trained the data set. I trained the data set. Now, once again, their AI can't tell if it's AI generated or not. So they're asking us to annotate the data. It's super smart, right? It's super smart, and that's great. I invest in tech as well as being in tech, but they can't tell. And the deepfakes are getting better and better. And the videos, it used to be that they're somewhat pixelated, so they're like, you could see the little boxes like Legos. You can't see it now. And if anyone watching or listening, if you go to YouTube and you go to the OpenAI YouTube channel and you look at their video on Sora, it will blow your freaking mind if you have not seen it yet. It shows you the text prompts. That's called prompt engineering, how you ask an AI to do something, and the outputs. It's incredible.
So scary. So how do you prevent it? You can't.
You can't prevent it, but there are three things that I do want to say, and I'm on a crusade about this. So, one, for your children and your grandchildren, you need to have a private family phrase that you never text, you never, ever put anywhere. It's not even written down. And that is something within your family. And so what we're seeing is we're seeing people who are getting phone calls. This is a scam going on right now. So if you see a robo dialer, like a caller calling from multiple different numbers and you don't recognize the number, don't pick it up. Because once you start to engage with it, they're using AI to get your voice and your intonation, and then they're adding it to public images to create video of you, to create deep fakes. And there was someone who was just, their bank account was emptied like $40,000 because of this. And they're using that to create fake facial recognition to get into your apps that require facial. So this is some old school stuff. So number one, have a family phrase. We have one, Rebecca. No one knows what it is outside the family. The kids know what it is. If they get a call from me like, hey, I need $2,500 or whatever, they would have to ask the family phrase, because you know what? It's going to sound just like me. That's the scary thing. That's number one. Number two, it's time to stop posting your damn kids on social media, because anyone, if you have, any net worth whatsoever, they are going to create deep fakes of your children. We're going to see all kinds of things. And I did it too. I was complicit. I was not in this world at that time. I wouldn't do it now.
Yeah. Yeah.
But posting your children's photos, your teenagers, you need to monitor their phones and what they're doing. There was just an outage of about 74,000 cell phones of all the big providers here in the United States. And my next common sense thing is, do your kids actually know how to get home if their cell phone isn't working? And you may say, well, Rebecca, that sounds common sense, because you and I would know how to do that. But we grew up before the cell phone era. And so you've got to be training your children. And this is also a time too that, unless you have an OnlyFans or whatever it is you do, and you really don't care if those salacious images are out there of you, then fine. But if you do care, then let people know what you stand for. So then if something does arise, like people know for me in my real life, they know, oh, okay, Susan is Christian. Susan doesn't show bikini pics of herself on Instagram. There's no booty shots of me. So if they saw something like that, they'd probably go, hey, that's not Susan. And if that is you, and you don't show yourself in a thong on Instagram, then be who you are, because then if something comes out, your friends are going to know it's not real. But Rebecca, this is getting to the point where we even saw in Hong Kong a fake virtual meeting where they used AI generation to make all of the executives. Did you hear about this? And there was one real human in that meeting, the virtual meeting, who thought these were all the executives in the meeting, and they transferred millions of dollars to the people who did the deep fakes. Now, that company should have had safeguards. No one person should be able to transfer millions of dollars out of your company, but that is going on right now. So common sense things like always be changing your passwords, have the 20 25 alphanumeric character passwords, don't have two passwords the same, constantly be checking your cybersecurity. Like this stuff, it trickles down. You see the bullying with kids that are using AI to bully other kids. We're going to see it more in divorces. We're going to see it more in business. And you have to practice the common sense things to protect yourself.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, I tell people to change their passwords constantly anyway. for sure. But I mean, this is, another level of that. I mean, it's going crazy with all of this. So these are all really, really great tips. Let's talk about that first verbal psychological trick to make an aggressive person sorry. Well, the first thing that you have to do is stop defending yourself. All right. You don't defend. Never come back with defending yourself. If you start pushing back right away, they're going to push back, you're going to push back, and nobody is going to get anywhere. I would say never jade. I would say I love jade because, I'm half Chinese. So, but never jade, never justify, argue, defend, or explain. Because when you do that, you're just going to raise the temperature even more, 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 more. And by the way, you're never going to convince them. You're never going to get them to go, oh, you know what? I see that now. I see your side. I didn't think of it that way. Especially if you're dealing with a narcissistic person, a high conflict person, they want to be right. It's all about them being right. If that's the type of person that you're dealing with, you got to just pull back. You got to pull back. You got to let go of the reins. You got to let go. If you're playing tug of war, right? You got to let go of that, because then somebody is like easing the tension there. So if you just let go and just let them be, then somebody is letting go of the reins and never justify, never argue, defend, or explain. So the first thing you got to do is never justify, argue, defend, or explain. Stop, okay? And let go. Really, the second thing is to let go. Just let go and let them be like that. Let them be like that, because you are going to have a strategy here that is going to be much, much more powerful. I call it ethically manipulating the manipulator here. You're going to come back from a much, much more powerful place, a much more strategic place, a much more tactical place. You don't want to be pushing back against them, because you do that, you get nowhere. The next thing I want you to do is I want you to actively listen. I want you to actively listen. And while you're actively listening, I want you to be validating them. I want you to be validating them. You're going to be saying things. I call it fluff for favor, vomit later, in a lot of ways. But you're going to be actively listening, and you're going to be saying things like, oh, I hear you. I understand. I see what you're saying. I get that. And it must be hard for you. But you're going to be looking at them almost as if they're a toddler having a tantrum on the floor. When a toddler's having a tantrum on the floor, you don't go, oh my God, let me get on the floor with them and let me scream and have a tantrum along with them. You look at them and you're kind of like, oh, are you done yet? And always maintain your own level of respect. If they're not respecting you, you're out the door. But as long as they're respecting you, then you can stay. You can stay in the room, and you're just looking at them, and your tone is even. Your tone is calm. In some ways, you even want to like lower your voice. The lower your voice, the better it is. The calmer you are, the better it is. And by the way, while you're active listening, while you're giving them validation, make sure that you're always respectful too. That means no dirty fighting, no nothing like that. No cussing, no bad words, no name calling. You're maintaining your level of respect too, because as soon as you start getting into the trenches with them, now they're seizing on that. Oh, you called me the name. You said this, you said that. Now it's going to be all about that thing. So active listening, validation, respectful, calm. You don't go back. You don't push back. You let go. Active listening, validation. Now, the next thing I want you to do is use words like I feel, I feel, I feel hurt. I feel disrespected. You don't use words like you, because if you use words like you do this, you do that, they will be triggered. When you do that, they will be triggered. So you frame it in terms of I. And when you do that, they will be starting to listen to you more. The next thing I want you to do is I want you to start with areas of agreement and then work toward those areas where there might be more conflict, more areas of disagreement. So psychologically, now you're starting to have momentum. Well, I know that we can agree that we both want the best for our children. I know that we can agree that we both want whatever it is. Whatever it is that you can find common ground on, then that's where you start. I know that we can both agree that we both should have respect for each other. Whatever it is that you can come up with, that there should be something that's an agreement on. Because the more that you can have an agreement with each other, and the more that you can have non-defensive communication, the more that you will lull that other person into believing that there's non-defensive communication, that you're in agreement on things, that you're now starting to have momentum on agreement on things. And now, hey, why lose the work that you've already done? Why get rid of that momentum? We're actually getting somewhere here. We're actually covering some ground. So let's not throw all of this away so far. Let's continue to work toward resolution since we've already gotten this far. And so now you've gotten this harmonious environment going, and as long as you don't stay triggered, you have to stay low to the ground. Don't allow yourself to be triggered. Even if they say something that's triggering to you, even if they say, you know that you're the one who always does blah, blah, blah. You're the one who's always late. You're the one who never does blah, blah, blah. Whatever it is that they try to barb you with or whatever, just let it go by. Let it go by you. Don't allow yourself to be pulled in, sucked in, brought in, because if you do, then you're going to be right back where you started again. Is this making sense? Give me a yes in the comments if this is making sense so far. It's not an easy thing to do, okay? And that's why I have free phrases for disarming narcissists, which I definitely highly recommend that you get at disarmthenarc.com. Make sure you grab those because you will need them. You will need them for emails, for your text messages, for your communication in general. Make sure you grab those. They are totally free. And join my free private Facebook group, Narcissist Negotiators with Rebecca Zung, for additional support as well. When you're faced with hostility, when you're faced with isolation, when you're faced with somebody who's trying to gaslight you and make you think you're crazy, you do want a community of support. You do want a community of people who are surrounding you, bathing you with light, bathing you with love, who are telling you that you're okay, that you are actually the one who's not the crazy one. You want to be surrounding yourself with people who can help you. Make sure the last thing is that you're working toward a constructive solution. Let them know we're working toward a constructive solution. Let's continue to work toward a constructive solution that's going to be good for everybody involved. Whether or not you believe that or whether or not they believe that, use words like that. Use words that will allow them to believe, hear, and see that, oh, we want to work cooperatively, constructive solution that's working about positive working relationship or positive relationship that's good for the children or whatever it is that, the buzzwords that they want to hear so that it makes it seem like everybody's on the same page. Those are the verbal psychological tricks that calm aggressive people down. And if they say things that are like trying to make you angry, instead of responding with anger, respond with curiosity. Say, oh, that's interesting. Why would you say that? Oh, that's interesting. Why would you do that? Don't fight back like that. Let's dive in. These phrases are not just words, they are tools of empowerment for you, specially crafted to help you reclaim your voice so that in the face of manipulation and control, you've got something to do, something to say. And I know that they work. You know why I know? Because I've been recognized as one of the top attorneys in the country. And I've got a USA Today best-selling book, Slay the Bully, How to Negotiate with a Narcissist and Win. And I've got millions and millions of views on this channel. So if you're new here and you haven't subscribed to this channel, what are you waiting for? Make sure that you subscribe, hit that notification bell so that you don't miss out on any future videos. So, number one is I respectfully disagree. When a narcissist tries to belittle you, tries to belittle your opinion, calmly state, I respectfully disagree. It asserts your stance without escalating conflict. So what you want to do is you want to be able to have that invisible Teflon boundary that comes down around you so that you can start to look at them as if they are a little toddler having a tantrum on the floor, and that you can step back. I say stop, swap, and soar, right? And then you just stop, look at them. I respectfully disagree. And you can take your moment and step back. No, they're not going to like it, but it will be very healing and helpful for you. So that's phrase number one. So, number two, I understand that's how you feel. It acknowledges their feelings without validating their unjust accusations. You don't want to have to deal with their false accusations. And that's something that I know you have to deal with all the time. And if you are dealing with that, I've got a free Crush My Negotiation prep worksheet, which you can get at winmynegotiation.com. Definitely grab that because it will help you. I've had lots and lots of people get it. I understand that's how you feel. That's a really good one too. Number three is no thank you. I mean, simple yet powerful. This phrase sets a very clear boundary. Do they like boundaries? No, but it helps you. These again are helping you reclaim your voice. That's what this is about, right? Your voice. Number four, I need to think about that. Again, you get to take a pause. Hit that pause button. Use this when a narcissist demands a quick decision to pressure you. Don't allow yourself to be pressured. Don't allow yourself to be in a situation where you have to be pressured into feeling like you have to do something, especially when they're getting ready to ask you to sign something. Never sign something without knowing what you're going to sign, without knowing what you're going to do. I've seen it over and over and over again, especially as a lawyer. No, thank you. Or I need to think about that. Both of those phrases together are very, very good. Just put no, thank you. I want you to put that in the comments right now. No, thank you. Number five is that doesn't work for me. And it's actually kind of a soft one. That doesn't work for me. Asserts your needs while the narcissist is proposing their agenda on you, right? Have them stop putting that agenda over your head, especially things that aren't reasonable, which is, kind of like a lot all the time, right? I need to think about this. It doesn't work for me. All these are helping you assert your voice. And if you need support, join my free private Facebook group. It'll be very helpful for you. Narcissist Negotiators with Rebecca Zung. Good stuff. Next one. Ooh, this is a good one. This is a good one. Let's stick to the facts. What do? They go all over the place. They're all over the place. They're back in 1984 half the time or whatever it is that they do, and they're gaslighting you. And you know what? Let's stick to the facts. It redirects that conversation into where you are now instead of veering off into manipulation land, gaslighting land. Let's stick to the facts. And if they don't want to, you don't have to. You don't have to have this conversation right now because you know what? You can go right into phrase number 7, which is, I don't play this game. I don't play this game. Use this to shut down the manipulation right away. The trick is when you're delivering these lines, not to allow yourself to be triggered, not to allow yourself to get emotional. That's really, really, really important because you don't want to allow yourself to get pulled in, sucked in, drawn into the emotion of it. Because the more you can remain calm, the better you're going to be as far as being able to deliver all of this in a way that's not being drawn into the mud. Because if they bait you and go fishing and you're drawn into the mud, now they have you. Now they have you. I don't play this game. Just deliver it. Next one is number 8. We're almost halfway there. Number 8 is I'm not comfortable with that. And I have seen situations as a lawyer, and you guys know that I've been recognized by US News as one of the best lawyers in America. I've done trials, I've done mediations, thousands of them. I've seen a lot of situations where people have been asked to do things that aren't comfortable for them. If you have been asked to do things that you're not comfortable with, and I'm not just talking about signing agreements here. I mean, I've seen people who've been asked to do sexual things that they're not comfortable with, or social situations, all sorts of things that they're not comfortable with. You can set your boundaries. What's negotiable are contracts, issues, and terms. What's not negotiable is your self worth, your self respect, your self esteem, who you are. I'm not comfortable with that is a very polite way of setting boundaries. And you cannot have leaky boundaries around who you are. That's how you got drawn into this in the first place. When you start to say things like, well, I just want to be nice. I don't want to be the bad person. That allows you to get drawn into doing things that are against your gut. I'm not comfortable with that is fine. It's a good thing to say. It's okay. You're allowed to be who you are. Give yourself permission to be who you are. Number 9 is this conversation is over. You are allowed to get up, stand up, walk away, and feel your sense of self respect. Give yourself permission. It's essential for when a narcissist is being abusive, demeaning, judgmental, condescending, disrespectful. Give yourself permission. That's phrase number 9. Phrase number 10 is I'm choosing not to respond. And you're allowed to say that too. Give yourself permission to not respond. Great for deflecting baiting attempts. You can say things like that, right? That's your perspective. That's another one. Phrase number 11. That's your perspective. That's the way you think. It's not the way I think. I used to say that other lawyers, that sort of thing, even in situations like that, that's your perspective, not mine. It acknowledges their viewpoint without having to agree with them. It's like you're observing it. The next one is I'm not going to argue with you. I mean, I've been in social situations where people have said things that are just flat out wrong. That's fine. You don't have to agree with people. Once you get old enough, you start to realize, you know what? People can just say whatever comes out of their mouth, and who cares? What difference does it make? It just doesn't matter. They can say, think, or do whatever they want. It really doesn't matter. I'm not going to argue with you. Don't escalate situations. It just stops escalating situations in their tracks. So that's number 12. Number 13 is another, one that's sort of similar. And they hate this too. You know why? Because they want that supply. They're baiting, they're fishing, they're trying to get you into it. Come on. And you're going, no, not doing it. So phrase number 13 is, I won't participate in this. I'm not going to participate in this conversation. And especially when the conversation turns toxic, but they want you to so bad. So phrase number 14 is another one that's similar. That's an interesting opinion. It's an interesting perspective is another way to say that. Very neutral, very non-committal. It doesn't give them the reaction. They want reaction. They want supply. That's why they won't give you up a lot of times. They moved on sometimes to other supply, and you're like, why won't they leave me alone? Because they're looking for supply from you. That's why when you go to create your strategy, my SLAY method, strategy, leverage, anticipate in you, you've got to figure out a source of supply, that diamond level supply, that's more important for them to protect and defend than the supply that they get from jerking you around, and then threaten that source of supply. And that's what I teach you how to do in the sleigh method. Next is number 15. We made it here. We made it all the way to number 15. Do you know what it is? It's let's agree to disagree. Or another way I say it is I agree with you. I used to say to opposing counsel, we can disagree without being disagreeable. It's a way to end a circular argument. If one person is fully entrenched and another person is too, you're going to be parallel forever. You're never going to get anywhere.
In speaking to you today is to give somebody who is listening to your story and to all of the tools and strategies and insights that you are about to share about identifying a narcissist in your life and learning how to negotiate with them and keep your sanity and your power intact. What I want to understand is, after 20 years of litigating high net worth divorces and battling with narcissists day in and day out, can you explain how you now think about narcissism based on your experience for decades, your personal experience, and all of this extensive research that you've now done on narcissism? How do you think about the definition of a narcissist?
So a narcissist is not what you think. A narcissist is not a person who thinks so highly of themselves. It is a person who absolutely has no feeling of value internally about themselves, no feeling of value. So they have to get all of their feeling of value from external sources, which is image, mostly things related to image, which is the prestigious friends, the big houses, the money, the big cars, all of that, degrading people, devaluing people, manipulating people, and pushing people down in order to make themselves feel better. But it's an endless amount that they need because they can never get enough. It's completely scarcity based. It's fear based. It's all of that. So, and you're left feeling totally and completely empty, and that yet they're still starving because they can never get enough.
Rebecca, just listening to you, I just exhaled. Having dealt with narcissists in my life, I mean, it's exhausting. You do feel alone. You feel empty, because if you've ever had that experience where you're like, am I going crazy? Like, why is this person always making me feel like I'm the problem? And then they still want more no matter what you do. Mm-hmm. We're going to get into how narcissism is formed. This is fascinating stuff that you need to know. You are absolutely going to learn all of the things that Rebecca's going to teach you, the words that you should say that diffuse a narcissist, her 4-step plan that will help you get what you want, even if you're dealing with a narcissist in your life. But before we go there, could you just tell the person listening what's available to them? Because I think you get so beaten down when you're dealing with narcissism in your life that you do believe you're the problem. You do believe that something's wrong with you. And if you're listening to my words and you're feeling used and exhausted or scared, Rebecca, I want you to explain to the person listening, what could their life look like? Where could their life be if they take the time to learn the tools and the strategies that you're about to teach them so that you can keep your sanity intact? You can stand up to the narcissist in your life when it's important to do so, and so that you don't get so sucked in to the way that they go about life. Because I think that's part of the problem, is that their strategies work, which is why we get so turned around.
I want to start with you standing in your authentic power. And I love the concept of the Wizard of Oz. And I want to start with that because I just think it's so beautiful, which is that the wizard is really the narcissist in a way, which is this big head. He pretends like he's something that he's not. And he's actually this feeble little man who's afraid. right? And that's really what a narcissist is. And to me, you're like Dorothy, who's trying to find yourself. You're trying to figure out who you actually are. And what you're really trying to get to is Glinda, who knows who she is the whole time. And to me, she's sort of like your soul. There's a very subtle part of the movie, which is where Glinda is talking to the gang, and the Wicked Witch comes around and she flies near Glinda. I don't know if you remember where she says to the Wicked Witch, "Go away, you have no power here." Do you remember that?
Yes.
That's where you're going. That's where you're going. That's that authentic power. When you can stand in your authentic power, to me, it's aligned with source. When you are aligned with source, you know who you are and you are in your purpose. What people need to know is like, once you know who you truly are, you stand in your authentic power, and then that's the narcissist is like, go away, you have no power here.
Ooh, I love that. Don't you love that? That idea that you could stand in your power and be like, go away, little narcissist. And that's exactly what's happened to me. I have somebody who is very narcissistic in my life. I am not getting them out of my life, but everything you're about to learn has helped me stand in my power so they have no power over me. And that's exactly what you're going to get out of this conversation today. You wrote in your book, staying in a relationship with a narcissist just is really and truly not an option. And you listening to us as you're reflecting on everything that Rebecca Zung is sharing with you based on her personal experience, her professional experience, and all of this extensive research, the 40 million views on her YouTube channel, like she knows this inside and out. You have this phrase, today is a great day to start negotiating my best life. And if you see yourself reflected in the comments or the stories that Rebecca is talking about, there are things that you say, Rebecca, that you need to stop doing immediately if you want to get out of a narcissistic relationship. What are the things you need to stop doing in order to cut off that supply and get out of there and negotiate for yourself?
Yeah. So step 1, don't run. Step 2, make a U-turn. Step 3, break free. So in the strategy, which is the first step, you have to have these action steps. So in that first action step, step 1, don't run. Stop allowing them to speak to you in a disrespectful manner. I mean, that's the very first step. I know you feel like it's so overwhelming and it's fearful and it's scary and it feels like, oh my God, you're going to have all this backlash. And I know that. Because you feel like they're going to have that tantrum, right? But that very first boundary that very first baby step can be, I'm not going to allow myself to be spoken to in a way that's disrespectful. That can be your very first step today, because I know you have to course correct. It's like, stop that conditioning, 180-degree turn, right? Stop that conditioning. So first boundary is that start looking at them as if they are a child having a tantrum on the floor. Start putting that invisible shield down around you, and like Superman having, bullets off your chest, or Wonder Woman with the gold bracelets. Remember, they didn't attach themselves to you because you have so little value. They attached themselves to you because you had so much. They devalue you because you have so much value. So remember that. Start looking at them like that. Stop defending yourself. Never explain, justify, or overshare. So, just start looking at them as if they're a third party. Just say, we can discuss this when you have calmed down. Or, I can see that you are upset. I can see that you are angry. Observing their behavior. Let it go by you. Almost like pretend like the words are like looking, whizzing by you. I always say it's sort of like dodgeball. When I was a kid, dodgeball was a big thing, So like I always remember like the words just like they're looking at you, hitting the wall.
So is that, just so I know, because we're going to get a ton of questions, which is, okay, wait, how do I allow myself to not speak? How do I allow myself to hold a boundary and not be disrespected when this person barrages me with texts or yells at me and then I get paralyzed? And you have these essential phrases that you coach people to use to disarm a narcissist and observe the tantrum, acknowledge it, but not let it hit you. Can you share a bunch of those phrases that you coach people to use?
Yes. You can say things like, I agree with you. I agree with you that we're not going to agree. I agree with you that that's your opinion. You can say things like that. I agree with you is always a good one because they kind of hear, I agree with you, but just make sure that you follow it up with, I agree that that's your opinion. If they're saying things like, you're a terrible mother or whatever, you just make sure that I agree that that's your opinion. Your triggers are not my responsibility. You can always say things like that because they often say, it's your fault this or your fault that, something like that. But you can always make sure to remove yourself from a situation where you're not being respected.
I love these phrases. I understand that's how you feel. Your approach is not working for me. Let's discuss this when you're less emotional or angry. Do you have any coaching for the fact that I think most people are afraid to say that because they're then going to invite narcissistic rage? Mm-hmm. So when you use one of these phrases to connect with your power and to not allow yourself to be disrespected, I understand that's how you feel. Mm-hmm. And then the person raises the stakes and starts raging at you. What would you advise somebody to do that is just starting to practice these boundaries and create boundaries and not run away from the situation?
If they feel like they are going to be in harm's way in some way, then they really may need to remove themselves from the same physical space. Okay. There's a saying that says that, if you don't want to be a doormat anymore, get up off the floor. And, you train people, you condition people on how to treat you. And that's, it may sound harsh, but it is the absolute truth. And narcissists are the best ones for that. That's just the truth of the matter.
So if they don't change and somebody's either unwilling or too scared to leave right now, how can you truly negotiate with somebody like that?
Well, you can, because what I teach works.
Rebecca, I just have to say, I love the swagger. Well, you can, because what I teach works, because that makes me believe you. And you're referring to your SLAY method. And SLAY is a 4-part framework that you follow in the courtroom and in life for dealing with, negotiating with, and winning against a narcissist. Can you explain what SLAY stands for?
SLAY stands for strategy, leverage, anticipate, and you.
So let's start with the first one, S. What does it stand for?
S stands for developing a super strong strategy, which is the first part of that is creating a vision. If you're just trying to communicate in general, if you're just trying to figure out what to do with them, if you're in a family situation, if you're just trying to, figure out how to deal with them in life, if it's your neighbor, if it's your tenant, what is it that you want? So many times people are like, I just want them to stop, or I just want peace. That's not a goal. What you want to be specific about what you want. So
is there a reason why peace can't be a goal? And let's take the example that you either have a mother or a father who is a narcissist. And all you do want is peace. You are not ready to become estranged and to remove them from your life. And you want to figure out a strategy that helps you know what your vision is. How do you figure that out? Because, to your point, you always talk about these 3 C's that you can't change them, you can't control them, and you can't, what's the other one?
You can't cause it, control it, or cure it.
That's right. You can't cause this, you can't cure it, and you can't control it. And so knowing that, how do you create a vision if it's your mother or your father? Like, what questions do you ask yourself?
I still think even if it's your mother or father, you can create a more specific vision around what that relationship should look like for you.
I don't want to
So,
be triggered all the time. I don't want her or his BS to trigger me or make me feel manipulated.
right, or even put that in positive terms, like,
Do I have to?
yeah.
Put it in positive terms. Okay. What does that look like?
Right. So, we will see each other X number of times a year. And during those visits, we will have these kinds of conversations. And, this is how I will define the relationship. And, I think that you should be more specific like that because,
I love that.
yeah, I think that will be because you get what you envision in life, right? So
I love that. I love that because you're right. I think you're so conditioned when you're dealing with somebody who's narcissistic to think about it from what you're enduring versus what would you actually want. And a lot of times it's like, I'd like to be able to walk into a school function where my ex is and not feel like I've just left my body in a panic attack. I put that in a negative, but that's a very common one that I noticed is that people dealing with exes and feeling completely enmeshed and triggered and wanting to be able to feel powerful and unaffected anytime I see them.
right. Yeah.
Is that
but
positive enough?
no, I think it
Okay.
I mean,
I
I
love
think
you,
it-
Rebecca. Help us.
I think it should be I want to be able to walk into a school function and sit next to them and be able to discuss our child together and be happy for our child together and celebrate her together and go out for pizza together afterwards and laugh together during the show or I think that if you can be like really specific like that it would actually be more beneficial for you.
Beautiful. L stands for leverage. What does that mean?
So leverage is where you're actually creating that motivation for the person to want to be squeezed and incentivized to want to come to a resolution with you. And in the case of a narcissist, it's going to have to be a situation where that diamond level supply is potentially going to be threatened, or there are times where you could potentially what I call fluff for favor, vomit later, so where you're
Fluff for favor, vomit later.
yes, where you sort of fluff up their ego in order to get something, give them something they want in order to get something you want. Because
I do this all the time with someone in my life, actually. Now
Yes.
that I'm realizing I have really developed this strategy. I do deploy a strategy. I'm realizing as you're talking to feed a particular person's ego that they are getting their way, that they are the most important person in the room. And I do that as a manipulation strategy so that I can get what I want.
Exactly. Just as long as you know that you're only doing it in order to get, what you want. So if you have to go shower or vomit later, then, you do the thing. But, it's in order to get what you want later. So, but more often than not, what you kind of have to do is use your documentation because they lie so much, because they're so careless, frankly, I mean, they don't think you're ever going to keep track of all the different times that they say things that are, um, they'll say something in a text message, they'll say something in an email, they'll say, I mean, honestly, they are very irrational. They, as we talked about at the beginning of this show, how many times their memory is faulty or whatever. But if you keep track, that's how you create your leverage in a negotiation. And you say, hey, you said this, you said this, you said this. I am going to present this in court. I call it ethically manipulating the manipulator. You can call it whatever you want. Many times empaths are uncomfortable with that sort of thing. You have to be on the offensive when you are dealing with a narcissist. It's not doing anything other than what works. I mean, it's not anything that's, unethical at all. But you have to do the things that are offensive. Whereas most empaths are like, I don't want to fight. I just want to resolve this peacefully. Let's just come to a resolution. But if you want to come to a resolution and you want them to stop jerking you around and you want them to leave you alone, this is what you have to do, because they're never going to leave you alone. They're never going to stop. So many people come to me and they say, oh, we're still in court. It's 5 years later. They won't leave me alone. And I say, well, then you haven't figured out what your diamond level supply is yet. You haven't figured out how to, what your leverage is yet.
I bet that part, figuring out your leverage, is the hardest part because you feel so spun around by the narcissist. So let me just see if I can track with you here. In your 4-part framework for negotiating with a narcissist, it's SLAY. So remember, everybody, S is strategy. You have to have a vision of what you're looking for and that you want to get out of the relationship. And again, you have to have this going in or you're going to be spun around like a top. And the example that you gave, Rebecca, is my strategy is I'd like to sit next to them in a school function and discuss our child in a civil manner. The next step is L. And L is for leverage. And again, this has to do with that narcissistic supply. They're always going to want to feed their ego. This never ends. You've learned this. And you have to accept that as fact and then use your leverage to give them what they want, even if it makes you vomit later. And you're doing this, you're giving them the supply, the attention, the praise, the this, the that, the weekend trade that they're asking for. You're giving them that, even if it may, I don't want to have to do this. Why? So you can get what you want. And the reason why this is important is because when you supply them with something, what happens? You go into the cycle where they're nice to you. And lots of leverage, by the way, Rebecca is teaching you, comes down to giving them what they want, but also documenting what they say, what they do, and how many times you say something and how many times you do something. And why do you need the documentation, especially if you're in sort of a confrontational kind of thing? And you don't have to be in court for this, by the way. This might be that you constantly argue with your parents about who's hosting the holidays. Keep a record. Keep a record so you have proof. I'm dead serious about this because this comes down to leverage and to supply, right? And this also keeps you from going crazy. And a lot of this has to do with the fact that when you give them something, they're in a good mood, so you can sneak in what you want. See how this works? I love this. So now that we understand the strategy and the leverage, A comes next. And you say, Rebecca, you and I got to be able to be 2 steps ahead. Always. You got to anticipate. Can you teach us what you mean by that?
So A is where you can actually figure out the type of narcissist that you're dealing with, because they will all act a little differently in negotiations. And So a covert narcissist is much more likely to use the flying monkeys and pretend like they're the nice one and I'm the victim and, oh, poor me and all of that. Covert narcissists are going to be the first one if somebody has cancer to show up with the basket and be right at their side in the hospital and, that sort of thing, but smearing everybody on the side, so you just have to be careful of who you're dealing with. And then the anticipation is that also that knowing that they're going to try to bait you. I always say they go fishing, they go, shh, and then they reel you in like this. And then once they have you, you're in the mud and you're down there.
That makes a lot of sense. So what's the final part of the 4-part SLAY framework?
The why, which is you standing in your authentic power for you on the offensive, and then also your mindset, because 100% of winning is your mindset. And if you don't believe you can win, nobody can help you. And, I have so many people who have said to me, that I can't win or I can't do this or whatever. And I always say to people, do you want to be right about that? Or do you actually want to win? Because you can be right or you can actually get out of this and win, but you can't have both, right? The good news is that there is a way to deal with them. Most people think that there's not. Most people say you can't negotiate with a narcissist. You can't deal with a narcissist. There's nothing you can do. That it's pointless. It's hopeless. The good news is that there is actually a framework. It is actually pretty simple. They are actually pretty simple to understand. And that once you get on the other side of it and you stand up to them and you grab that power, the freedom that you feel, the feeling that you feel is actually beyond better than anything else. The people who I've helped through my programs are so powerful now. I actually now have master coaches who are becoming, they're graduating from my coaching program now. And it is beyond anything else that's more magical and more powerful than ever. That's the beautiful thing. You and you alone define your value. You can win.
We are going to guide you through the minefields, guide you through the minefields of the tactics that narcissists use to break you. All right. And, I know that you are feeling maybe broken down. You're maybe feeling disempowered. They want you to feel destabilized. They use these tactics to try to control you. And when you go to negotiate with them or try to communicate with them, which is where I come in, I am a negotiations expert. I'm an attorney. I've helped people in many, many different arenas. And if you don't have my brand new book, Slay the Bully, How to Negotiate with a Narcissist and Win, definitely go and grab that. But, I want to help you transform. In this, they launch psychological warfare on you, right? So they're like these shadowy gladiators. They come on charming. They start off charming. And they try to break your spirit. And one of the weapons that they use is gaslighting. All of them use gaslighting. Even covert narcissists, especially covert narcissists. And how that will show up is in many different arenas. In my book, Slay the Bully, How to Negotiate with a Narcissist and Win, I actually talked about so many different forms of gaslighting. When I went to go start writing the chapter, I thought, wow, there are so many different forms of gaslighting that I could actually write an entire book just on gaslighting. I didn't even realize as I started writing about it how many different forms of gaslighting there are until I started writing about it. And what gaslighting is basically a way to make you think that you are crazy. It's a way to make you think that your reality is not your reality. What you're seeing is not what you're seeing. What you're hearing is not what you're hearing. What you are feeling is not what you're feeling in any different scenario, whatever it is. So, it might be, we had that conversation, don't you remember? And you're like, and we never had that conversation. Or it might be you're too sensitive, so what you're feeling is not what you're feeling. It might be any way to distort your perception so that you're doubting the ground upon which you stand or the feelings that you're feeling in so that you start to literally doubt yourself. Your brain is foggy and you really don't feel like yourself anymore. And it's vile and it's venomous. And it's a way to take control of you. Take control of you because that's what they want to do. Narcissists are people who don't feel good about themselves. Because they don't feel good about themselves, they want to take control of others through these methods. They are very fear-based individuals. They're very insecure individuals. And so they use this method. And it can be in the form of passive aggression, or it can be in the form of withholding. It can be in the form of you're looking at a text message that looks like somebody is being flirtatious. You're reading too much into this. So, it's anything that makes you look like you are doubting your reality. And that's what gaslighting is. The next form of psychological warfare a tactic a narcissist uses to break you is triangulation, where they basically play puppeteer or marionette. They're taking a marionette and they manipulate relationships to create this web or line up armies to isolate you, make you feel bullied, make you feel like you are the only one who feels a certain way. And, as a child, I was bullied. And, so this is something that is very triggering for me, that's for sure. And it's, it's to make you feel like you're the only one who thinks this, or everyone's going to believe their lies. And it's, to make you feel like you might as well give up because, what are you going to do? You're never going to win. The cards are stacked against you. So what are you going to do? It's extremely deflating. It's defeating. It's a smear campaign. And you definitely see this in the discard phase. But, many times with covert narcissists, they start seeding this triangulation even long before you even know that it's happening. I mean, they might start saying, oh, I'm so concerned about Johnny, concerned about his drinking, just worried about him, just worried, just so concerned. And they put it in terms of care or concern so that people think that they're such a good person. They're really manipulating. They're really actually smearing. So that's, a way that they will start triangulating. And another form of tactic that a narcissist will use to break you is projection. They project and cast their own flaws onto you or others in a twisted sort of mirror game to take whatever is going on with them and project it and put it onto others. So because they don't want it to reflect back onto them what's going on with them. So that's another one. And then and then there's always this love bombing and devaluation cycle as well. Love bombing, devaluation, love bomb, devaluation, which happens throughout the cycle of a relationship until you get down into the discard. It's the cruel sort of hit of dopamine and then back into devaluation, and then you're craving that hit of dopamine, which is a very, very powerful craving, that addiction hit that you are looking for, showering you with affection and casting you out down with scorn. So which of these have you guys faced? I would love to know. Let me know in the comments. Tell me your tale. Tell me your battles in the comments. Which story could be your beacon of hope for others? Tell us in the comments below. And picture, this, a client during negotiations has ruthlessly been gaslighted, facts twisted until they're doubting their own sanity, they're doubting their own reality. And then I step in, not just as their lawyer, but trying to help them with their reality, reminding them of what their reality actually is. We strategize, we document, we ground them in their truth, in their reality, and we triumph. Have you ever felt that grounding of reality shake beneath you, and then you needed to find your footing again? Has that ever happened to you? Your insights are so invaluable. Share them below. Share them below. Triangulation can be so disarming. And if you need an ally, you need that ally, and but you're suddenly feeling like you're alone. Remember that knowledge lies in power, in having that. You need to have that power behind you, right? So having that battle plan is so important. That's why I wrote my book, Slay the Bully: How to Negotiate with a Narcissist and Win. That's a battle plan for you. Tactics: spot them, stop, stand strong against these assaults. Facing smear campaigns can feel like you are stuck in quicksand, right? So you need to have the right words. You need to have a lifeline. And I've curated potent phrases for you to disarm any narcissist, leaving them speechless. So if you want to know what they are, get my free phrases for disarming narcissists. You can get them by clicking the link on disarming narcissists. Just go to disarmthenarc.com and get them. They're totally free. And that way, if you're ever at a loss for words, you'll have them. And I would love to know which is your favorite, right? Share your favorite phrase with us in the comments. Your wisdom is a torch for so many who are stuck in the dark.